Had a pretty start to the Monday. Again, the biotechs are going crazy, a lot of hype with all the FDA approval and data releases. This one, AMRN, was actually halted on Friday, and they unhalted Friday afternoon after the announcement of FDA approval of one of their drugs. And today it was gapping up huge. All-time high was 2460s. You can see on the daily chart, and pre-market it was gapping up to 2740s and kind of just starts selling off. And so the plan before pre-market was to long the bounce using this 2460s area as a risk and sell it into the push, taking advantage of the volatility at the market open, and if there's opportunity we can flip short. So I longed pre-market. As you can see, I longed this dip here after this wash and selling some here before the market opened, and it was holding before this higher low before the market opens, so that's a good sign. So selling into every push towards $26, and after it wasn't holding this 26 area, I just cut the last piece of it at 2580s, and the stock just sells off. And over here I was watching for another similar setup, extended sell-off. I was loaning the washes and selling into this previous 2460s area, right? Just a tiny scalp. The best ad was 2420s and selling into this pop, because again 2460s previous all-time high, and using that level and seeing how it reacts to it. It was really weak around that level, and that's why I sold everything. And after I see it slam down and rejecting the previous high, and going red on the day, this is previous red to green line, going red on the day, that's where I scalped some small size shorts, and I covered everything here. And of course there's more down here, but I was all out on that short because I made my money on the long side in the front here, long here on the bounce, another long here on the bounce. And sometimes it's hard for me to flip short and using like the same size. A lot of times, when I flip the other side, I usually, use smaller size. That's just kind of how I trade and how I protect my downside. And I don't want to get, too sloppy when I'm going long and short. So that was a nice start to the day. The next one, AXSM. So this one, they were trading higher after the company announced some positive phase 3 study to some depressive disorder and met primary endpoint, blah, 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 blah. The stock basically gapped up from $49 previous day to a high of $86. It doubled overnight. So if you were a long-term investor, you probably want to take profits when your investment doubled overnight, right? Especially if you were long from $15. This used to be a penny stock. This used to be at $5 level. Look at this. This was at $8, a year ago? So so I imagine after the stock doubles overnight, the people will actually want to take profit. And that's why I was leaning in short. The idea was to short any pops. I thought it could pop to $95. So this is actually just a small size. I was anticipating even more pop on this pop, but never got there, and that's why I just had a small quarter size short. But that's okay, because the stock actually, after I shorted this 84.30s, it flushed down to a low of 76.88, and the best cover was $74. So that's a nice, what is that? Somebody do the math for me. 5, 6, 7 point. Something like that, even with just a quarter size. So that was a nice short in the front. And I left it alone in the middle of the day. And near the end of the day, that's why I went long. I was thinking, okay, I'm going to long this and risking VWAP and selling, for a quick scalp bounce. Bad idea. This is what I mean by a lot of times when I'm short or long on the first trade, and when I go back and flip the other side, I make mistake. And that's why, when I'm switching bias, my size is always a lot smaller. So I was actually trying to long this, and you can see I lost on this long, right? I tried to scalp some bounce, not the best entries and not the best exits. And so it's a loss on this second trade here. Gave back some profit from the morning short. Last trade on the day, MIRM. So this one is just purely a momentum trade because it's, a low float. I think they have a float of 4 million shares, so that's a low float. It's a small cap, 188 market cap. So that's why, the news, they had some news before the market opens. They complete some successful pre-NDA meeting with the FDA. It's not positive data. It's not like FDA approval. This is just they have successful meeting. That's not really that big of a deal. The fact that it ran was because it's a low float, right? With momentum, these low float pigs will run. And it was also breaking all-time highs. All-time high was 1560. So that's why the stock was pushing. So I was only in the wash after the first hold here. The stock dipped down to, I think, 1580s, 1560s, and that's why I longed on the wash, so selling into every single push. And unfortunately, I was all out on this push towards $17 because I thought, it was trading kind of sketchy, the spreads were huge and the volume wasn't consistent, and that's why I was out of my long here. And of course, I missed everything up here. But I have to protect my downside, right? And I went back to long a few more bounces here and here, and for tiny scalps. But again, the price action wasn't the best, so that's why I took what I can and just left it alone, and I missed all the backside and everything else. But it's still a nice way to start the Monday. So we had some nice follow through with the small caps in the first hour today. And as usual, let's start with a loser on the day first, ADMS. So this one, I think you've seen me play similar setups on APDN and what's this other offering play? I forgot, some other penny stock. But today, ADMS had some bad, was a phase 2 or phase 3 data release. So the stock was halted from $7, and when it hung on hold, it was around $5, and it holds down again on the volatility hold because everyone's trying to sell. And when it opened at $4. So that's where I was thinking, okay, like maybe we can try to bounce this thing. You can see I got long here around $4.12. The risk was gonna be $4, and I should have sold into 4.48, man. But I was waiting for 4.50. That 2 cents ended up costing me about 10 cents. You can see I stopped out around 3.96. So like that's what, like another 10-cent loss. And then like when I got out, I accidentally flipped shorts, as you have seen me do that, a couple of times in the past before. I'm not proud of it. So I, covered the short when it was accidental. And it ended up working well on the short side and then the long side, but I was all out. So this is a loss on the day. IMGN is the next play on the day. It was gapping up due to, some news about accelerated approval study for one of their drugs. It's not FDA approval, it's not positive data, it's just accelerated study. It's not real news. And this stock has, a history of gapping, selling off the gap. Like you can see, dilutive chart, lots of bag holders on the daily. And that's why, I was leaning in short pre-market and I shorted here and I was waiting for a little bit more of a pop to add even bigger. But when it kind of starts working right away at the market open, that's why I added in bigger size and I was covering into the wash here. So that's a nice, 20 cents gain here. And then I was a little bit higher here. So overall, nice gain to start the day, and this is where I added a little bit more onto my short. And when it starts reclaiming this 450 area right here, and that's where I covered it here. You know what? Like I didn't want to outstay my welcome because this, when it reclaims the 450 area, it could start grinding up like it did later on in the day and back towards the highs, possibly $4.70 and even $5. So I don't want to be stuck in that. So this is why I covered everything here and I was out of this trade short. The other one was PTI. So this one was kind of tricky because they seems like the headline was positive, right? They released positive phase 2 top line results from one of the drugs. But the thing with PTI is, yeah, it's positive news, but guess what? Look at the daily chart. It's been bought up from $1 all the way to $4. So people were buying the stock in anticipation of the positive data release. So it's being priced in, right? This is the same way why sometimes when stocks have good earnings sell off. It's because it's been priced in. It had a run up from $1 to $4. So that's 400% return if you were, in the stock long in anticipation of the drug trial. So that's why this stock was selling off such as this from $5 to a low of 240s pre-market. And, I was early and that's why I got a piece of it here pre-market. Early bird gets the worm. So it's like 7:40 a.m. Eastern time. I shorted here. And then, when it starts working out, I was like, okay, great. Now I'm gonna short on every single bounce. And this is where adding it even bigger here. And I was covering some into the wash here, covering some more because the market's about to open and it kind of didn't pop at the market open. That's where I covered into this area because I was thinking, okay, like pre-market low is starting to hold and it just kind of keeps on selling off. Stock was extremely weak. Everyone who bought up here was in a hurry to sell today and also at the pre-market, of course. So CVS, this is a large cap negative news release play. So the Justice Department was suing CVS over Medicare prescriptions for the elders. So they did not have the permission to do so, yet they did it anyway, so they're being sued. And of course, that's extremely negative. So that's why I shorted the sell off here and added some more when I seen that the stock was extremely heavy. Everyone's trying to sell, and I was covering into the wash and almost bottom ticked here by like 5 cents, and I was out. They want to outsay my welcome because a lot of times with these volatile sell-off, it's followed by another volatile bounce. So I don't want to be caught up in that. So that's why, it's a nice little momentum scalp on the bad news. So today's the day I take a pretty sizable loss. As you can see here on ASLN, it's a long loss on both trades. The pre-market was okay because it was just small size starting out. And this is a pretty sizable loss. I lost over 40 cents, almost 40 cents. So yeah, obviously I'm not proud of it, but I still think there's a lot to learn from this mistake. So let's talk about it. So I also took other losses on the day as well, but ASLN was the biggest loss and the one that, wiped out all my winners on the day. So ASLN, it was gapping up with no news, but based on, the behavior of how the stock was trading last month, the stock has a tendency to push at the open. And furthermore, they closed the offering price at $2.50 just a couple days ago, last week, early December. So that's why I was thinking, dilution is over. We can have more upside today. But of course, in hindsight, the stock has already ran from $2.20 all the way to $3 pre-market. So I think I definitely was too long biased on this stock and letting the past. Like when you see the daily chart, you can see the stock had a history of squeezing all the way to $8. And I guess that's what I was looking for, at least to $4 possibly. But, I just got too long biased and got too big too quick. And I got caught on this dump. Actually, this pre-market, this is small size. This was okay. This is a planned loss. Like I was okay taking this loss. Yeah, it's not fun, but like the sizing, pre-market, and I was just testing this water. This was no problem. I'm okay, totally fine with this loss here. But it's a loss at the market open where I was buying the volume breakout because there was a lot of buying on tape and the stock was already trading almost 500,000 shares in the first 10 minutes. So that's why I was thinking we can see a pop towards $3 and potentially higher towards $4. And this is where I made the mistake, right? I got a little bit too big and the stop was I had a lot of slippage, so took a pretty sizable loss on this. And there's a couple other smaller losers. So the next one is YAYO YAYO. So this one, a similar idea as ASLN, but this one, the sizing was not as big because I wasn't familiar with the chart. Of course, in hindsight, you can say it's a backholder chart. I shouldn't have bought it. But the idea was that this stock has never traded this much more volume. And when it had unusual volume trading pre-market, that's why I was, more biased towards the long side. And this stock has a 4 million shares float, so it's a low float runner potentially. So that's why I longed, same idea as ASLN, volume breakout. And when it keep on, topping out around this area, that's where I trimmed my position and I got out of the rest here. So the stop here was a lot more acceptable and the sizing was way better than my trade on ASLN. So SLDB, this is actually the first trade on the day. You can see I took the loss pre-market on the short side, and I went back and covered over here, and I went back to short it and added it bigger at the open, seeing a lot of weakness, a lot of flushing down. So the short pre-market was a lot smaller size, thank God. But even with the cover up here, it's over $1 loss. It's still a sizable loss, I'm not gonna lie. But, it's a planned loss, and my risk was about $7. $7, why? $7 into the daily gap. I was thinking if it breaks above this daily gap, it's gonna go all the way to $8. So I'm not gonna take that kind of risk. So my stop was $7. In pre-market, you can't use hard stop because you get a lot of slippage. And that's why my stop, after I manually stopped out, it was about 709. It's not a small loss, but it's not a huge loss like ASLN by any means. And that's why it gave me the clarity to be able to go back and re-short this. So I went back short because I saw that my original thesis on the SLDB gap up short was still valid, right? That news was just some update on one of the data. It's not positive data. It's not positive phase 2, phase 3. So that's why I went back in short and with a lot bigger size this time, because this price action confirms that this is a sell the news event, right? And that's why I added in bigger at the market open, seeing a lot of selling on tape and covering some into the wash, but keeping a majority, and added even bigger here, seeing that, okay, this stock, there's no one buying this. Look at this. This didn't bounce at all, right? This is why I added a lot bigger and I was covering into the flush and covered down here at 420s. And it went back down to $4, but it was all out. This turned out to be a very nice winner, and then, of course, it covered all the losses from the front, but unfortunately it's still not big enough of a win to put me green on the day. So I'm still red on the day because of ASLN. So some smaller trade, SYRS, just a scalp short, shorting the price action and covered most here, and then covered it all because I was seeing that it's gonna squeeze again after reclaim VWAP. The other one was a nice winner on the day, MIRM. But this one I never got to full size, so it's still I longed here $18, was ready to add some more if it flushes down, and selling into every single pop and re-adding on the pullback here, and then adding some more and selling everything, and it was all out by this point, so I missed everything here. It's a nice little momentum trade, but it's not a sizable win compared to ASLN. Definitely my confidence took a hit after the big loss on ASLN. So tomorrow I'm gonna size way down. The goal tomorrow isn't to make back the losses. The goal tomorrow will be to just be green on the day. Doesn't matter if it's $1,000, couple $100, or even $10. I just need to be green tomorrow to regain my confidence back. So that's kind of how I deal with my losses instead of trying to make the money back, because I've done that. I've tried to do that in the past, and that just kind of ended up snowball all my losses into even bigger losses the next few days. So I can't trade like that. That's emotional trading. You're trading your P&L. You're not trading well. And today, that's why I scalped CBIO short. It's a low float with, I think, it's like 11 million shares float, but it is a small cap, 96 million market cap, and it's a stock I'm really familiar with. I have traded this a couple of times in the past before. Will squeeze, yeah, but it will also sell off eventually. But the fact that today we traded 20 million shares volume on such news, that's not even that impressive. It's really, they entered this collaboration for $50 million upfront cash. So I guess that's a good news, but I still didn't think the stock could actually hold up to $8 now after hours. Whew. But the idea was just to short the pops. Really simple. I've done this a couple times in the past before. Shorted pre-market and covering most of it here, and recovered all of it here. After that, it's starting to slowly grind up, and I shorted again at the market open after seeing that this is rejecting the 660s, 680s highs, and that's why I shorted and covering into every single wash. And I didn't want to outstay my welcome. I did think that it was gonna sell off down to 560s and 550s and potentially the entire gap, but I didn't want to hold too long. Again, I just want to be small green, and I'm totally okay with that. And I did go back once more to short again for another scalp, much smaller size, from 630 and cover into 610 and just left it. So small green on this one. So I'm really happy about this. RAD. So this stock, I was actually really surprised by the impressive strength it had today, because in the past before it has sold off on earnings. Even with good earnings, it sold off in the past. But the fact that today it was just like an all day long just proves that you can never be completely right in day trading, never be overly biased. So two trades here. It's a long trade and sold here, and then a short scalp over here. So the reason I long this because I see that it's breaking above this daily level 1040s, and that's why I longed it here. Really small size, and I never added because again I'm not hoping for home runs. I just want a small win to pad the wallet, and that's why I sold into the push to 11.70s. I actually didn't think it can go all the way to $12. That's why I sold, and that's where I scalped shorted around 11.60s and covered into 11.30s, and that's it. That's why I just left it alone. So a nice little scalp long and scalp short. And of course, in hindsight, I wish I went long, using this VWAP. But again, I don't want to go back and start making mistakes. And the other tiny trade, AXSM. So this one, they completed, well, actually they announced offering of $87 a share, and the stock just started squeezing. And you can see, look at this amazing sell-off. I was not part of it after it hit 105, which was the price I target when I went long here. But, I just want to take my small wins. I didn't make everything. That's totally fine. And you can see I never added to my starter size. So small long and a small win on this one. So I'm just really happy to end the day with a small green. Did I make back all my losses from yesterday? No, I did not. But what I made back is my confidence, and I just want to end the day green and be able to trade again tomorrow. So happy Friday. Happy to end the Friday with a small green. CBIO was the stock I made money on the short side and then lost money on the long side. So as you remember, I always had trouble flipping my bias, and after shorting a penny stock, it's hard sometimes for me to go long. And that's why I tried it long today with a really small size. And of course, it didn't work out. But anyways, this stock has been, a tricky one to trade. The best trade was yesterday when I nailed and bailed on the short side in the first 1 hour. And today, again, the best trade was still the first one, short and cover. And rather than just going back in and trying to re-short and getting chopped up. And here I gave back some of my wins from earlier with a small loss. And here again, when I would try to go long, seeing that the stock is going red to green with a volume squeeze, and lost on that one on small size long. So CBIO, a tricky stock to trade. Still happy to be green on this one. Next stock was the only gapper on the day, TCON. So this one is a recent reverse split from early November. They have some pump PR for some partnership and gapping up to 380s pre-market. I actually caught it late because I was doing my due diligence, and they had an outstanding S1 with ATM offering. So that tells me it's a pig, and that's why I sized in small. On the short, I was thinking I was going to add if it pops to 350, 360s and add some more short, but didn't get there and just starts flushing, right at the open, and that's where I started covering. Oh, actually, I was all out before the market even opens on this one. You can see it, when it opens, it didn't pop that high. It just popped to 315, the previous resistance, and just dumped all the way down to where it came from the day before. So it's a pig after all. And the next one was MNPR. So this one I had to small size on this one because the spreads were crazy. And it's a recent IPO. Well, recent as in an IPO from yesterday, but it only has 1 million shares float. And this stock reminds me a lot of LMPX, where I IPO'd at $6 and went all the way to $44 because it's a low float, right? And I think a lot of people were playing it thinking that it's gonna be like LMPX, but they're completely different sectors. The only thing they have in similarity is the fact that they're both IPOs and low float. So the play on this one was just purely a momentum squeeze with volume, right? I got in on the dip after the on-hold and was selling into every single rip, and I added some more here and I sold everything here. So happy to end the day green just before the holidays. I don't think I'll be trading much next week because it's Christmas, and I hope everyone have a good one. Happy holidays.